Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. This time I'd like to call the April 2nd, 2013 Planning Board meeting to order. The first item on the agenda are minutes of March 12th and March 26th. Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recommend the minutes as written.
I'll second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is an approval not required. There are none. Thank you. Yes, Pat.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we take the discussion on Stephen Haddad's site plan review out of order.
I'll second. Okay, discussion. We have received a letter of withdrawal from the applicant. Do we have that letter? Okay. Thank you. Letter dated March 2nd this year to Mr. Brian Curry. I am writing, it's dated March 25th. Excuse me. Thank you, Jim. I'm writing to request that my application currently before the Planning Board and the Historic District Commission be withdrawn without prejudice. Thank you, Stephen Haddad.
Mr. Chair, if a motion is required, I move that we grant his request to withdraw without prejudice.
Second.
First we needed to vote on taking this motion out of order.
Oh.
And that was a motion on the floor, so we need to vote on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, abstained. Okay, now, I'll obtain your motion, Rich.
Move that we entertain and grant his request to withdraw without prejudice.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Motion carries. If anyone is here in the audience for that particular issue, feel free to leave now if you'd like. All right, then we need a motion to return to the,
I move that we return to the regular order of the agenda.
okay? Do you have a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is a continuation of a public hearing for the Mammoth Acquisition LLC site plan review and special permit to raise the existing buildings comprised of 30,249 square feet and construct a retail pharmacy of 14,600 square feet and a bank of 3,000 square feet at 93 and 105 Davis Straits and 238 Worcester Court, Falmouth. Is there someone here for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I recused myself previously, so I need to do so again.
oh, very well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, I'm Laura Moynihan. I'm an attorney from Falmouth, and I represent the applicant. Representatives tonight from the applicant development company are Mr. Michael Kaufman and Mr. Alan Zaff here in the front. Mr. Stan Celine is here as well, the landscape architect. Raul and Mike will be here from Holmes & McGrath. Mike is on his way. And Jeffrey Dirk is here, the traffic engineer, as well. So we were last here a while ago. Since that time, we've had a number of meetings with Mr. Curry and his staff, and appreciate all the assistance that his office has given to us. There have been some changes to the site plan based on comments and referral issues that came up. So Raul will present those to you and just highlight what revisions have been made since the last hearing where you had a full presentation on the project. The color scheme for the proposed CVS building has also been changed, as was brought up at the last planning board meeting, to a gray color scheme, and I think you have those color elevations in your file. As well, I just wanted to touch very briefly on some of the benefits that we had discussed at the last meeting for the project. I know there are some people here in the audience that may not have been here the last time. We are looking at closing 3 of the existing curb cuts, so going down from 6 curb cuts to 3. We do believe that there will be traffic improvements, relocating the Davis Straits access point further to the south, allowing for more movement there on Davis Straits, increasing the queuing area on the site. We're adding an additional access point off Worcester Court to assist with the circulation, and we'll be making some significant landscape improvements, as well as removing a Title V septic system in the Little Pond Overlay District, better new drainage on the site, and better service to the community overall through the reconstructed CVS building and the bank. So with that, I'd like to ask Raul, if I may, to come up and go through the site plan changes with you, and then we'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you.
I apologize, I did not introduce Kevin Patton from the architectural company for CVS as well. He was here in the audience if you have specific questions.
Thank you.
For the record, Raul Lizardi from Holmes & McGrath for the Civil Engineers and Land Surveyors. This plan that I just put on the easel is the one I'm about to start handing out. So there's a few changes that are very drastic on this plan from the previous plan that was presented to the board. The goals of the changes was to provide a greater segregation between the service areas to the customers, to both the CVS and the bank, and the service areas for the business. And these were the loading zones, the trash compactor area, and the trash dumpster areas. The revisions at the CVS were mostly on the back of the CVS where the loading zone and compactor are located. That area in the back, the proposed building is now a rectangle. At the past, there was a kitty corner on that corner of the building. This new design for the building allows us to provide a better separation between the drive-up lanes for the drive-up windows and the service areas for the loading zone and the compactor. In this design, the service areas for loading docks are not interfering with the stacking lane for the drive-up window. Similarly, behind the bank, we were proposing some parking spaces. Now we segregated those parking spaces so that backing out of those parking spaces and driving into those parking spaces, we do not interfere with the stacking lanes for the drive-up window of the bank. The changes on the CVS made it so that the building was shifted forward. Some of the parkings on the front side of the CVS were reconfigured and shifted around, but we still have the same number of parking spaces. The proposed lot line that's separating proposed lot 1 and lot 2 were adjusted in order to conform to the lot coverages of the proposed lots and the proposed site development. Something else that I just received today, back in the letter from, the memo letter from DPW dated January 30, 2013, there was a comment about an access through the handicap aisle. The crosswalk that we showed at that location that I just pointed out it's aligned with an access aisle for the handicap parking spaces. And there was a question of that not being a proper design. I got in touch with the director at the Architectural Access Board, Mr. Thomas Hopkins, and I received a reply to my email today that I'll be submitting for the record, where he says that he doesn't see any problems with the design and he's not aware of any prohibition under 521 CMR, which is the Architectural Access Board. If there's any questions that I could answer? Or-
I just wanted to clarify a point from the last hearing. A question was asked about the drive-up pharmacy pickup window for the CVS. There are 2 lanes proposed, and a question was asked if they're both full service. And I believe the information that was provided is that the outside lane would be drop-off only. That is not in fact correct. The proposal is for 2 full-service lanes.
Any questions from the board for clarification? Mr. Sardi, is it S-A-R-D-I, your last name?
Lizardi, L-I-Z-A-R-D-I.
L-I-Z-A-R-D-I, thank you. Yes, Doug?
Yep, so what is the actual lot coverage, and how does that fit in with the zoning?
The lot coverage for Lot 1, that being the CVS lot, is set at 70%, which is the maximum allowable. The lot coverage for the bank, trying to find it, I think it's at 65, but 61, which is below the 70% lot coverage.
Thank you.
And I just point out that the lot coverage by structures for the bank is at 9% for the bank site. And the lot coverage for buildings on the CVS 1 site is 19%. So they're both in conformance with the zoning bylaw.
Any other discussion, or questions of, yes, Bob?
Yeah, I noticed on the staff report that traffic mitigation has been checked off. Could you give us a report on that, Brian? Because I had asked about that at the last meeting. It was an open item that I wanted some information on.
Peak hours, those are taking down the net decrease in the retail area could have taken down the office building. Doesn't trigger the fire anymore, but they have added some quick mitigation measures on the site plan themselves. So we took that.
I had some residents in the area ask about the driveway going out onto Worcester Court. Is that in the same location as it is now, or has that been moved at all?
I'll speak to that. There were some changes done to that. This portion of the driveway here?
No, it's up further towards the intersection. That
This
one there, yeah.
Oh, no, we're matching to the existing driveway here. That's the existing driveway right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're matching with the stock up right there.
Okay.
So no, we're not doing any changes to that curb cut.
Because that seems to be a sore point with people that live in that area. You get people turning out and blocking traffic, and it makes it so that people have to sit through a couple lights sometimes because of
Yeah.
that choke point there.
One of the benefits, and Mr. Dirk can talk about this too, and he touched on a little bit at the last hearing, one of the benefits from this redevelopment project is that there is more queuing area within the site itself in this location here. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Jeffrey? As compared to what is on site now with the location of the building. So maybe he could address that for you. It is definitely a benefit.
Good evening. For the record, Jeffrey Dirk with Vanessa Associates, from the traffic engineers on the project. So I think as Laura had mentioned, there are some benefits relative to the design of that access that make it safer, but allow us to have more storage internal to the site. The other thing that we have is the second access that we're creating onto Worcester Court. So it does allow for some balancing of the traffic as opposed to having it all concentrated at one intersection. So we think that it will kind of offset and hopefully address some of the situation that the residents are seeing up there today, so that you won't have those backups happening. The other thing is with the improvements the state's doing at the signal, it will reduce the queue that happens out there. So the frequency of occurrence where that driveway would be blocked will be reduced as well. So there's some benefits just, unrelated to the project, related to how that intersection will operate.
Okay, that was my other question.
Yes.
Is how it balanced with the state plan.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about.
Yes, Doug?
Well, I got you up there. I see that you've rearranged the loading dock area, and the trucks now will exit onto Worcester Court. And which way would you envision them going? Immediately to the intersection, or is that a driver's choice?
More than likely, that would be the direction. It depends on their service route, because they would tend to load the truck, the CVS truck in particular, would be loaded to maybe service more than one store, so it depends on the travel route to the next store location that they're going towards. But it would seem to me, probably they would exit out onto Worcester Court and then probably go up to the intersection and then proceed north on 28, more than likely.
And any idea how many deliveries there are per, is it daily, or?
For the record, Michael Kaufman from the development company. CVS gets its CVS deliveries approximately once per week, maybe twice a week during peak times, but it's not daily.
Okay, thank you.
We discussed at the last hearing as well, just to follow up on that, that one of the reasons for this reconstruction is to add the on-site storage within the building itself. So that will cut down on deliveries and products coming in and out that people might be seeing now. The storage area in the existing building is limited, and we talked about that at the last hearing, that another benefit from this project is to be able to provide that storage area on site within the building.
Jim, you had a comment? Pat?
Did I also understand from last week that the deliveries are between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m.? Is that correct? So that the concern about how they're going, driving out onto Worcester Court, and which way they're going, I think is not as great a concern because there's very little traffic at that time. Do you ever get deliveries other than those hours?
On the major, I'm Alan Zapp from Coffin Realty. Now, they get the deliveries, they're scheduled to come in between, I think it's 10 and 1, and that's when their trailer comes in to the stores.
But are you likely, you only get the large trailer trucks at that time?
From the CVS warehouse, yes.
Okay, but do you get deliveries from other sources that are large trucks?
No, the other sources are not large trucks. It's only the trailer that comes in from CVS.
Jim?
Yeah, I just have an informational, what is the average daily traffic counts on David Straits at this intersection?
Going through the intersection itself?
Well, at any nearby point, I'm just looking for the recorded record.
I believe we were at about 5,000. Let me give you an exact number. Yeah, so in Worcester Court, it's about 6,000 on an average weekday, so that's about 6,000 vehicles per day. And then if you move over to Route 28, it's about 19,000.
So it's under 20, that's,
Correct. And that's actually, I think those are peak, so it
all right, I
comes with the
understand.
peak.
I just wanted to know what the high
Yes.
number was.
Bob?
Yeah, just a little clarification, if you're on Davis Straits heading north, and you're coming into the parking lot there, there's that wide driveway. You take a right, and then you can take a left into the parking lot? I can assume that? Okay. Will there be arrows indicating such to that effect? And people coming out of that can then come and take a right and a right onto Davis Straits?
On the site plan, we have markings to be marked on the pavement. Those are the ones that indicate specific flow movements. Where there is no markings, is two ways. So we do have, this is an entrance, this is an exit, right turn only, and so forth.
Okay. I like the way this driveway between the two buildings really clarified that up. I think it works much better than the original proposal. Having the drop-off traffic to be able to take a left or a right there, I think is a good thing.
And just to add to that, that was one of the areas that we worked on with Mr. Curry and Marlene, and the town engineer had some comments on that because they wanted some revisions to that access driveway to broaden the island to better prevent the left turn movements out of there. So that's one of the areas that has been worked on over the past few weeks to address the comments from the last meeting.
Yes, Rich?
Yeah, I see on the west side of the CVS building, though, there's a Siamese twin connection. I don't see notated anywhere here anything like that near the bank building, nor do I see any note that there's any hydrant or anything on that side of the property. And I'm wondering if that is just simply all the code requires, or if it's a function.
There's two new hydrants somewhere.
I didn't see them, I've been looking for them. Maybe I'm wrong.
The fire department requested Siamese connection for the fire department to connect to the CVS building. And that's what we're showing on the CVS building.
Are there hydrants elsewhere on that?
If you look at sheet 5, I believe it is.
Oh, okay, I'm looking at this sheet, okay.
There's
That was my question.
one proposed hydrant here based on review with fire
Okay.
department, and another one proposed over here.
Yeah. All right.
Other questions or clarification for the presenter? Okay, then,
I have one more.
yes, Doug?
I have a question about the landscape plan. I'm wondering, it looks like the landscape berms that surround the property on the two sides facing intersection, there's a lot of parking there, and that elevation being 22 and the planted area only at 23, is going to be a concern about headlights flashing out into the road. And I'm wondering what you'll do with the plantings to fix that.
Would you describe the concern again?
Just at the landscape planted area that border the two sides by the corner by Worcester Court and Davis Straits. The planted area, looking at the elevations, seems to be only about a foot above the parking lot. So I'm wondering if you're going to plant some sort of...
Are you talking about Davis Straits, along Davis Straits?
And Worcester Court.
Both Davis Straits and
Both on the
Worcester Court.
Okay.
That,
So the
To
entire-
the northeast.
wherever there's parking that would be facing either of those roads is the concern?
Right. For the record, I'm Dan Soline, landscape architect. Well, here we have parking that faces Worcester Court and parking here against Davis Straits. We're preserving the existing vegetation that already addresses that situation represented by these sort of olive-shaped, clouds on the plan. Here, we don't have any parking against or directed outward. I guess here we do, and if there's a concern, we could add some vegetation there too.
Or maybe just berm it up a little more or something to.
Right. Yeah. That's fine. We weren't aware of that concern, but we can address that.
Okay, thank you.
Pat?
Yeah, I did bring that up last week, that it's just not sufficiently high. I'd like to see the berms elevated more and appropriate plantings, because I think you're looking at 3 to 4 feet, depending upon what kind of vehicle you're trying to keep lights out of the eyes of the passersby. So I'm glad you're going to do some replanting and also some preservation.
Sure. Yeah, we're preserving as much as we can of the existing vegetation near the intersection.
Yeah, it seems, Mrs. Kirkwood, that maybe in this area here, is that?
Both, but
Well,
principally on Davis
Okay.
Straits.
These areas here, as Mr. Celine talked about, you've got the width of this vegetated buffer area all the way around here. We don't have the parking there, so perhaps some supplemental evergreens could be put in that spot. But again, this is all existing right now.
Yeah, but my concern is that the grasses are trimmed low. That's what you should do to keep them healthy. And so you really don't have the elevation that you need to keep the headlights from flashing into people's eyes.
Yeah, well, the existing vegetation is a mixture of woody plants and grasses. Actually, the grasses, I've observed over the years get cut too early. They get cut in the fall. And if they were left up through the winter and cut in the spring, then soon after they were cut, the new vegetation would grow up, and we would have the benefit of that plant material year-round. I'm sure that the developer, property owner, can affect some change in the maintenance in that respect.
Jim?
My experience on those grasses on landscaping is that in the winter, they die and blow over the yard, and it becomes a real mess. So the landscapers cut them down in the fall to keep it nice and neat. And so, because it's a way to keep the parking lot clean, if you don't do it, the hay blows through the yard all year long. So the neat way to keep it is cut them down as soon as they die, and we have the light go through. I really think that what we need is a berm, a little bit more height, or a different type of planting because of the seasonality of the grass plantings.
Some evergreen type of vegetation.
Doug?
It may be possible that I'm not reading the plan correctly, but it looked like the parking lot is 22 and the planted areas are 23, so that's only a 1 foot difference. Does that sound correct?
Right, yeah, that's what it appears to be.
Okay.
You need some vegetation about 3 foot high.
Or a berm.
Yeah, but if you see with trees though, you put a berm, you're gonna kill the tree.
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, I think they understand.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's good. It's a good point. If we raise the grade, then of course that will alter or affect the existing vegetation. We'll have to take out what's there, in order to raise the grade. It may be we may be able to sufficiently address the situation without raising the grade where there are existing trees and shrubs by simply augmenting the existing woody plants with additional woody plants that will provide that screen year round. Otherwise, we're going to be, I think, opening up an issue here with the requirement that we remove trees and woody plants and redo the whole situation. I think we can sufficiently address it by adding plants and removing and substituting for the existing grasses.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
Whatever works.
Okay. It's an issue. It's definitely an issue. Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? Then I'll ask Mr. Curry if there's any comments from the staff. Okay.
This is on the landscaping plan, right? We're gonna go on to our.
We're talking
architectural-
about
The whole
the
thing.
whole thing.
I still have some concerns in the architectural plan.
Okay, well, what are they?
Well, I still think that the elevation, I have a hard time finding that with the removal of all the buildings that were on this site before, and the details were there, and this blank wall that's presented on this side, I just have a hard time finding that that isn't more detrimental to what was there before.
Okay, now, the design review is still, we are still waiting for a referral from the design review. Is that correct, Mr. Curry?
I think you should proceed along the lines that you're in charge of the review of the project, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure they're going to be able to meet in time to get you something official, so I would just proceed along.
Okay, so
Well,
the design review has,
if
maybe
I may,
Ms. Moynihan can say,
Yeah.
well, have you met with them
Yes.
subsequent to your re-proposing the new plan?
We did not. We met with them in February and showed them a similar plan with a different color scheme, which was the original elevation, which they approved, and there's a letter in your file saying that they would recommend the plans to the planning board. The elevations have changed to address the color area. We don't typically, when those changes are requested by a permitting authority, whether it's this board or the Board of Appeals, we're not typically required to go back and forth to design review. So this plan was sent to Mr. Calfee, who's the chairman, and Mr. Greenberg this week, just as a courtesy. I didn't receive any objections back from it or comments. So they have seen it. They know it's there in terms of the color change. But I think it's important that the design of the building, as it was originally presented, was approved by the Design Review Committee. In terms of the elevation, this is a business zone property. We do have to have loading zone areas. Changes have been made to the elevations as suggested by the design review to mold that loading area or model it on the building materials. So I'll let Kevin maybe continue with that and describe what's been done there.
For the record, my name is Kevin Patton. I'm with BKA Architects, and there were a few changes that we made to the building after the last time we met with you in order to add some more fenestration and also some smaller elements to turn and transition between materials. So I'm just going to reorientate this here. Okay, the top rendering is, this is facing Worcester Court and Davis Strait, so north and west facades. And to outline what I changed, obviously the color changed to a gray from the yellow. And there was a triple window unit here, I changed to a double. Added a double window unit, and then I used a gable and a gable treatment to transition from a clapboard to a shingle, and then I placed another single window unit in there. The other thing I did to help highlight the windows, I changed the shutters flanking the raised panel shutters to a black. They were previously white. I took one dormer out of here because I ended up with a number of dormers that didn't work with the lower fenestration, so I used a pair of dormers instead of 3 in order to highlight this middle bank. Then facing the bank on the east elevation, I transitioned with another projecting gable with a single window in it, and then added a double hung up in the gable, and this kind of reinforces that second level or attic space. Added 2 dormers over here to try and get a smaller element, repetitive, on that side, and help relate to the bank, which is just on this side of the building. Several more windows were added in that facade, but they're a little difficult to see because of all the vegetation. So I do have flat elevations here that we can show. Do I want to take that question? And
So a quick question.
Sure.
These windows, are they actually functioning windows or are they just decorative?
Right. The vast majority of them, the glass is clear into the store. I'm a big believer of that. This one I have trouble with because I don't have a final interior program. There's a good chance that CVS may have a cooler in this corner. In that case, I'd have to put a shade or something like that on the interior face of the glass. But all these windows along this facade, from this bump out all the way down to the drive-through, and these windows along the front and flanking the door, all the glass is clear into the store. As Raul had mentioned before, the drive-through moved around the corner to separate the two uses, one being the loading and one being the customer drive-through. And this faces south, so there's some landscaping to help screen the dumpster, which is moved from along the periphery of the site over up adjacent to the building. And then the compactor, which used to jut out in front, has now been slid all the way back away from Davis Straits as far as possible, so it has a much, much smaller impact on the roadway there. That's the list of changes.
Okay, any questions or comments on that? I personally feel as though those changes are sufficient, if not significant, to run it by the design review committee again. I just feel as though you've made some major improvements there that I would think they would want to consider and agree with, probably. Just so that we're all on the same page, that's all. The fact that they approved it before you did all these changes really doesn't mean that much to me. I'd like to see them approve what's going to be built.
Well, the design review committee is an advisory committee. They don't approve the building. The planning board approves the building. So it's within your purview, as Mr. Curry said, to act in that capacity. So they provide advice and recommendations. Certainly, this plan has been provided to the committee, and I get if the planning board feels that they'd like to have comments from the design review committee, then perhaps written comment can be submitted after tonight, within the next week.
That's my feelings. How does the rest of the board feel?
I think this plan, these elevations are fine. They're going to need that blank wall because that's a loading area, that's the way into the drive-through. It's not going to bother anybody in that area. The sides that face the street are reasonably decorated, for lack of a better word, reasonably designed to have eye appeal, and that's all we should really be worrying about.
Pat?
The way I'm looking at it as compared to what we saw previously, the changes that you've made allow it to blend much better into the neighborhood, if you will, considering the bank across the street. When you look at Stop and Shop, hey, that's, you don't look at blending there. But it's got more the Cape Cod appearance, and I really appreciate the changes that have been made. But again, my comment on the landscaping, we are actually seeing trees there. And that's part of what I find so pleasing about the building. I don't know whether there's an intent to place the trees where they've been drawn or not.
No, yeah, they're located per the landscape plan. But if you want to see what's behind the trees, is that more the question?
No, that's not the question. No, the question is that when you drive around, landscaping is the difference that's really made between a building that is really pleasing, that you really like going into. And that's part of my being so fussy about what's in the berms too, because I also would like to see some trees. I know our bylaws call for street trees, which can grow to 45 feet tall, and that I don't find that we should have there at all, considering where it is. But perhaps some shorter flowering trees would be inviting for people. And I don't know what kinds of trees are proposed to be planted where they're shown there.
Well, I would just like to comment on your comment about the landscaping and its function on the site. I'd like to point out that the changes that have been made in the site plan have created some really great opportunities for landscaping, on this property, particularly, in the area between the two buildings, where we're able to, for example, on a large, triangular island here, include evergreen trees, flowering shrubs, evergreen shrubs, shade trees in a way that will really give some nice separation, between these two buildings that are rather, they're rather close. And also actually beginning at the street where we have daylilies and hydrangeas and rhododendrons at the entrance, evergreen trees to the south. Kevin was describing the vegetation that we've included in the plan to screen the utility area here. Again, evergreen shrubs, flowering shrubs, and a tree. And then you come around, and even along this blank wall that's been the focus of discussion, there are some little pockets that we can plant that will, somewhat soften that experience. And then as you pull around, this whole stretch, is a focus of a very significant, amount of landscaping, and landscaping that will be interesting throughout the year, in that it's, has fall color, winter effects, summer flowers, spring flowers. I think it's going to be a very beautiful, site to experience.
Just to orient us here, if we look at the second elevation down, color elevation, the second one down, right, you see some trees on the left side of the illustration. Those correlate to the trees that you have depicted on the east side of the building. Is that correct?
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, I mean, Kevin and I have worked very closely here. Actually, could someone hold this? Kevin, you want to hold this, and I'll correlate these. But this tree, for example, and the underlying shrubs is here. That's a London plane tree. Then we have two red maples here and there. We have a flowering tree, a Coosa dogwood, at this point. And then at this point where there's a sidewalk entering the building, there's a shrub massing of rhododendrons and hydrangeas, which isn't really intended so much to enhance the experience of that entrance, but rather, to be the focus of the drive-through as you exit. It's the intent is to try to make it as attractive as possible, but it also has I think a nice effect from other directions or perspectives on the property. So the images that you see here have been very carefully assembled to represent what's exactly on the plan.
Okay, Jim?
Well, my comments haven't changed from the last time. I still believe the same elevation I've talked about, having lack of detail and lack of fenestration, has not changed at all. And it hasn't been addressed, and I still feel the same way. And I think that because this is such a significant parcel to our town, you're tearing down buildings, and it needs to be addressed on all sides. And you haven't really addressed the comment that I brought up the last time, other than putting a fence in front of the compactor, but I don't see any additional detail or fenestration that I brought up the last time on that elevation.
Could you clarify, Mr. Fox, which elevation
Well,
you're
it would be
referring
good, but
to?
you don't have a northeast, south, or west on these plans here. I would refer to them specifically, but I gotta do it by numbers.
Okay, so maybe you
I
could help
believe-
us along here.
I believe it's shown in elevation 3 and 4.
Okay.
But normally you have a southeast, west, I don't have it, or I would have been more specific.
So we're on the south elevation.
Yes.
So the compactor and dumpster would be located.
It's basically the lack of detail. I mean, we're tearing down 3 or 4 buildings, all kinds of detail, and we're basically replacing them with a massive wall and a roof. I brought it up the last meeting, and I don't see any change.
There's two ways to really treat that wall. I mean, we can dress it up and do a Disney kind of effect to it and add lots of detail to it, but if you look at what the wall is, I'm trying to maintain roughly an equal roof-to-wall ratio. Half my wall or more is made up of screening material for compactors and dumpsters. And the use back there being receiving and the access way to the drive-through doesn't really lend itself to a lot of that slower movement, pedestrian kind of detail. And it's not, there is visibility to the street, but it's not your primary facade.
I understand that, but a simple gable, a few windows, just a little bit of details, the exact same point I brought up last time, and it has not been addressed.
I'd be happy to entertain and work through that with design review and adding some gables to it. I do want to caution or want to avoid adding false windows on the lower level because this area is this wall here.
I just need detail. I was giving suggestions. There's a total lack of detail on that side of the building, and hasn't changed since the last time I brought it up.
Chair?
Does the presence of the land, if you look at that wall in conjunction with the landscape that was just presented, does that change your opinion at all? I mean, you have on the landscape
If this
plan.
was landscaped in here.
I like what you've done on all the other elevations of the building since our last, except for this wall, and I never mentioned any of the other walls. This is the only one I talked about, and it's just a lack of detail on this particular drawing right here. These two, this is what I'm looking at. This is what you've given us. I just see a total lack of detail.
Okay. And if I may, I mean, this is the loading area coming in here. So we've got most of that wall that's being shielded by fencing. And what we've tried to do is supplement that with the landscaping, with this island here that's buffering that wall. And then about 2/3 of the way in, you have this landscaped island area that's going to buffer that wall as well.
I can see the
So-
fences. My
Okay.
comments are the same.
All right, so are you talking about doing something to the fence, to dress up the fence?
Detail of the
itself?
building is what I brought up the last meeting, and I haven't changed my point on that. I didn't talk about fencing or landscaping. I talked about detail and fenestration, and
So in this area right here, above the fence, that's the concern?
take a look at all the other sides of the building and look at the detail. And take a look at this side of the building and the lack of detail.
All right, so we're just trying to pinpoint the area that you're concerned about, right in here, is that it? And the roof area?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, Rich?
Yeah, rather than take a look at these other sides of the building, let's take a look and go around town and look at the back sides of all our commercial buildings. And what you're going to see is loading areas, and they're going to look like that, and there's no need to gussy them up, because that side of that building is the only side that does not in any way face a public way. It faces some private property, which is going to be screened by vegetation, and it looks like we can require as much vegetation as may be wanted, and a private property owner, they don't like it, they can put up their own fences. It's an industrial area, a commercial area. If you live next to a commercial area, you're going to expect to see the backside of a commercial building that has a loading area. And most of the time, there are going to be trucks going in there anyway. So even if you had false windows and fake gables, you're going to be seeing these big trucks coming in and out. What's the big deal?
I believe the big trucks will be coming in from 10 o'clock at night until 1 in the morning, Rich. Other comments? Yes.
Well, if the
Doug?
board feels that this is a valid or a concern that needs to be addressed. And I think a good way, potential, is to draw your eye up to the roof instead of it pulling away from you as you're going around. If I add 3 or 4 dormers, whatever is appropriate for the length of that roof, I'd be happy to do that.
Will they be visible from the street?
Well, you're skewed as you see it. So you're not going to see them more square on like you do from Davis Straits or as you wrap around the building. But they would have an impact. They would give more of a vertical or a face to that wall. I was looking to kind of minimize it and let that wall pull away.
It's a loading area.
Yes, Doug?
I like the fact that you're trying to stay away from the fake windows, because as we've seen in other places, those become kind of an eyesore after a while, because if the interior is not maintained, and sometimes it's not easy to do that, then that can be a problem. So I'm not in a hurry to push you into putting any windows in that lower area, but if you would consider a couple of dormers up high, it might make the building a little more interesting.
Certainly.
I don't want to put an extra burden or expense on with something that's not going to do anything for you, but I tend to agree with Jim's comment. That's a pretty big stretch of roof and wall with not much happening. So I think the dormers would be a nice idea if that's not going to break the budget.
I think we can fit that in there.
Bob, any comments?
Yeah, I just, this doesn't have anything to do with our purview, but I'm looking at 2 doors on the corner, the southwest corner, and then we have the main entrance. And the question I've asked people that frequent the current pharmacy, I said, have you ever noticed where the fire exit is, the second means of egress? Most people can't tell me where it is. And in this day and age where people mistake the gas for the brake and they drive through the front doors, I was just wondering if that ever happened, how many people would actually know how to get out?
Well, you are right that most people don't pay attention to any other way out of the building except for the way they got into it. We, of course, sign it, and in an event, I would suspect that most people are going to go out the front door. In a loss of power, of course, we illuminate our path to both ways out of it. Now, as Dan had mentioned before, that I think he called it an entrance, but it's really only emergency egress, and it comes out towards the bank.
Okay.
And that's that exit that flows through this deep landscape area.
Oh, okay.
And it's located right here. We don't, of course, in Massachusetts, it's not allowed to egress the public through a stockroom anymore, so
Yeah.
that's a totally separate egress.
Okay, because I didn't see that on this. It's hidden.
Yeah, there's a lot of vegetation over there.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it's hidden by. Okay, it was just something that had come across some discussions I've had. And also, I hope the queuing for the pharmacy is going to be a little bit better, because currently now you're standing in an aisle, and it's not the best situation. So,
Right.
like I said, this isn't review, but just as a customer. Thanks.
Other comments or questions or clarification from the presenter by the board? Yes, Doug?
One more comment. I think overall, it's a huge improvement over the first shot, and I like it.
I have to agree with that, and I think it's a combination of the staff working with the applicant, which is the way things are supposed to be. Okay. I have no other comments then from the board. I will now entertain comments from the public. So if you would be kind enough to approach the podium, identify yourself, and give us your input. I would appreciate it if you did not reiterate something that had already been brought to our attention before, so that we can keep things moving and get everybody a chance to speak. So with that, I will entertain. Yes, please.
Good evening. I'm Cheryl Williams, and I'm on the board of directors of the T-Ticket Civic Association, and I am here tonight representing our membership. And I'd like to offer up a couple of thoughts and comments on this proposed project. And first of all, big picture, as it stands today, there are 5 buildings and the associated landscaping, and I think, Rich, you said this, that will be torn down. The project size is approximately 3 acres. It's currently mixed use, residential and business, and there are currently traffic problems. That's today. Tomorrow, the way I see it and looking at the project plans, the project size is still going to be 3 acres. That's not changing. That's a constant. But the 5 buildings will be torn down and replaced with 2 businesses and 2 drive-throughs. There will be no mixed use. It will all be business. There will be bigger businesses because the proposed CVS is 1.5 times the size that it is today, and there isn't a bank today, and so there's going to be a 3,000 square foot bank. Inclusive of the new bank with the drive-through, that will mean that within 1.5 mile radius of that Stop and Shop intersection, or where the CVS is located, there will be a total of 7 drive-through establishments within a 1/2 mile radius. And I'm sure that the board is aware of the current situation with the Cape Cod Commission currently studying that particular locus as part of the Spring Bars Road project. They're doing a very broad-based look-see, if you will, at that piece of property in all of the surrounding area. And this is per request of the town of Falmouth, the planning department in conjunction with the Board of Selectmen. Their scope of work, as I said, is very broad-based. They're taking a look at a 5-10-year plan. They're taking a look at zoning. They're taking a look at mixed use. They're taking a look at redevelopment. They're taking a look at community character and what the town wants that area to look like. Now, their final report is due out within a month. And I just say that so that you're mindful that that's still in the wind. And that's a very big thing as it applies to this project. The T-Ticket Civic Association has many concerns and issues with many aspects of this project. Land use, traffic, the increase of traffic, the community character, currently the flow between residents to business, and historic preservation, because included in this project is the planned demolition of 2 potentially historic buildings, an 1800s era house and the old red barn that's been there for years. So keeping all of those facts in mind, we are formally tonight requesting that the planning board, you folks, exercise your authority to refer this project to the Cape Cod Commission for a specific developmental review. And as you folks are elected officials to the planning board, you folks do constitute a municipal agency. So you do have the authority to refer a proposed development to the commission for review. And that's any project, whether or not it meets or exceeds the threshold or criteria of a development of regional impact. It doesn't have to exceed that criteria. So we tonight are specifically requesting that this project be referred as a limited, and these are all of the right words, a limited discretionary referral. And the areas specifically of the regional policy plan, the RPP that you hear so much about, that we ask that the plan be applied to the look-see would be land use, economic development, community character, traffic, and historic preservation. Now, the Cape Cod Commission will apply their regional policy plans, but they'll also take a look at and utilize the local comprehensive plan that you folks have worked so diligently and so hard to update. And they'll, of course, use all the Falmouth bylaws. They have specialists trained in all of the areas to look at those specific areas. And be mindful of the fact that right now, the town of Falmouth funds approximately $400,000 a year to the commission for their services. So let's use them. One of our major concerns is traffic. And I wasn't able to take a look at the traffic study when I came into the office because it wasn't in the file. But I do have a couple of questions as they pertain to traffic. And the first question I have, Mr. Chairman, through you, is the question of the traffic figures, specifically the number of vehicle trips. And are these figures location-specific, or are they standardized numbers based only on the square footage of the businesses located on the premises? That's my first question.
Okay, maybe the applicant can answer that.
The traffic numbers for both the proposed project and the existing uses on the site are based on site-specific. They're based on this site, the uses that are located on this site, and then expanded to account for the fact that the CVS pharmacy is going to get larger. They're not based on industry standards, the typical Institute of Transportation Engineers numbers. These are Falmouth-specific to the Falmouth CVS, to the Falmouth office buildings on this site, so it's location-specific.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, through you, so you physically did a site visit to do traffic counts?
Yes. They're all documented in this traffic study. In the appendix of the traffic study are the traffic counts at all of the 6 driveways that were mentioned. They're all in here. There's a trip rate established for the CVS pharmacy based on actual counts for that pharmacy. Traditionally, what we would do is use the Institute of Transportation Engineers numbers, but the nice thing we have is we have an operating facility on this site, and so the best thing to do is use location-specific in this case.
And may I ask once again, Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
through you, specifically when these counts were taken? Were they done during peak season times? Were they done during winter months, during December when the project was submitted to the board for review?
Traffic counts were done in May of last year and then adjusted per Cape Cod Commission requirements to both. They were above average, so they didn't require an adjustment for the average. They were adjusted to peak month conditions based on Cape Cod Commission guidelines.
Thank you.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, once again through you, does the report include crash data for the surrounding areas? And secondly, as a follow-up, once again, Mr. Chairman, through you, is this data that was collected through Mass Highway data or was, okay, Mass Highway data, and I have a real problem with that. And we would specifically request that any crash data be obtained through the local police department, because Mass Highway data oftentimes is self-reported, and it certainly does not.
It's not self-reported. It's through the Registry of Motor Vehicles. The information from the State Highway Department comes through the Registry of Motor Vehicles, so it basically goes through anything that's filed either with the local police department or the Registry of Motor Vehicles, and that all gets funneled up to the Highway Department. It's not self-reported.
Well, perhaps it was a wrong choice of words. But once again, Mr. Chairman, through you, I've had extensive conversations on previous projects with Captain Doug DeCosta of the Falmouth Police Departments, and in analyzing traffic reports that have been submitted by various agencies, there is a vast discrepancy between information reported from Mass Highway and information obtained through the local police department. And I think that you will find, on recommendation from the Cape Cod Commission, that they always use local data versus the state data because of the vast discrepancies. So once again, respectfully through you, we would request that that information be obtained through the Falmouth Police Department rather than rely on information referred to this planning board from the Mass Highway through the consultant. And just one last question, Mr. Chairman. how does the state project to reconfigure that whole intersection impact the planning for this project?
Mr. Curry, could you comment on that?
Sure.
Because
The design of the site plan utilized the design of the intersection as it's going to be reconfigured. So this design engineer has worked closely with our consultant, the town's consultant, and with the Mass DOT.
Oh, okay, so I think, Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Curry, I think I hear you saying that that was all taken into consideration in the planning?
Yes.
Great. Just one last thought, and we respectfully request, as you always do, but we respectfully request that your board use a thoughtful step-by-step process to review this project. We ask that you use foresight rather than hindsight in the opportunity for planning. Please refer this project to the commission. Let them weigh in on these important planning issues for T-Ticket. Thank you.
further comments from the public? Yes, sir?
Good evening. My name is Harold Crocker. I am a precinct member for the area that a town meeting rep, and for the area that is being involved with the CVS. I have two questions. I don't know if they've been addressed in the last few meetings, but if they have, would you please correct me in the beginning of it? First of all, I would like to know how many parking spaces for the employees on the CVS, the new CVS parking lot? How many parking spaces?
Applicant?
For employees or? Yes, for employees only, not for the,
There's no separation.
no separation?
There have not been any separately designated parking spots or number count for employees.
Well, there is a,
For the bank, there have been, not for the CVS.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to ask, to make sure there was enough parking for everybody that goes in there. Because as you know, and I know, I've been here I'm a native here, and that area that we're talking about for CVS is a very busy area. And we like to keep it, that there will not be any problems with accidents or any problems with the neighbors around, so that CVS can go ahead and do what they want to do. Thank you.
I would like clarification of that from the applicant. The employee parking spaces that are designated on the plan are for the bank only?
Correct, that those spaces are on the bank lot. The parking, as you know, and as we discussed at the last hearing, one of the reasons for this project and one of the most important parts of it is to increase parking availability for the CVS itself. As the gentleman pointed out, it's necessary, and we do have additional parking proposed. But to be clear, there have not been any CVS employee designated parking spaces on site. The parking spaces on the plan are designated for the bank employees, and that was after discussion with your staff in terms of the location of those spaces. Thought it best suited for employee use.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Alan Fleer, West Falmouth Highway. First I want to get on kind of a procedural issue. There have been 3 continuations of this public hearing, but there have been no extensions offered by the applicant for the decision. And I'm very concerned that you guys are running out of time. and that you really need to avoid a constructive grant by not acting, and I don't think that, during the few minutes before town meeting next week would really be an appropriate time to make a decision on something like this. So I would either ask that you prepare to deny the project or have the applicant grant you an extension, significant one, because it's gone on for, this is the same set of notes I had a month ago when I sat here. Yeah. I hear Laura said that she has submitted that, so very good. Okay, well, we all know the problem with the current CVS is the traffic. It's got this terrible system where everything is around the perimeter. Anybody backing in, driving in, stops the whole flow of the traffic. There's one lane all the way around, and it's just ridiculous. It's barely adequate as it is, and extremely frustrating for anyone who ever tries to go in there, except when the lot is a quarter full. You can't see going back, you have to jog your way around, everything is just as tight as it possibly can be. And so when I was listening to the presentation, because I was sick in the end of February, and I heard, okay, we're going to include the Marks lot. And this was a rumor that was actually, you guys heard about before even the CVS was originally built. That the parking issue would eventually get taken care of because the Marks lot would be included. But, as it turns out, the Marks, none of the CVS is going to be on that Marks lot. We're going to have two separate businesses on two separate lots. And so, the advantage that we'd all hoped for just isn't happening. What you've done, what they've done is actually recreate the same terrible system that exists now. It really is mind-boggling that they could not have improved it. And even here, where they have a parking field, it's the same way. Everything backs up. There's no, drive-through sections at all. This is a parking field. Why can't it be like, a little bit like Stop and Shop, the plaza, the mall, any place? But, by creating these two separate things, you cannot mix, you've created the exact same problem that exists out there now. And I don't see it being any better. Let's look at some of the other, now we have, 3 or 4 internal stop signs. We have 2 or 3 stop, do not enter signs. This is supposed to be user-friendly. You get someone from out of town, oh, I'm a CVS customer. They start down here, they get to this vortex here where all the traffic to the bank is going this way for the bank drive-through. All the traffic for the CVS drive-through is going the other way. Talk about some conflicts, which is noted in a letter you have in your file from the Cape Cod Commission. This is not an improvement. To put queues to come and go, and we've never had that before. The only queues we ever have are for drive-throughs. It's like an admission of total congestion. I just don't understand how this can be improvement. Now, we see the entrance again on Davis Straits. The traffic control devices that are supposed to be there to prevent, only right hand in and right hand out, can't be built because the trucks have to drive right over it. Okay, and then we look at the entrance on Worcester Court, right up here. This really is the main entrance to CVS, and it's terrible. Most of the time, it's one car at a time. You rarely see someone coming in and going out at the same time. It's just too tight, and there's a grade there. It's not flat. And there's no improvement. They're going to keep it exactly the same. And of course, you know, there's another issue with that driveway there, is that it accesses the drive-throughs, as does this curb cut right opposite that provides access to the drive-through for the TD Bank. That creates a pre-existing nonconformity under 240-109H4, which requires a 300-foot setback from curb cuts that serve drive-throughs. So, to get around that, there's going to need to have a variance, or there's going to be a not more detrimental finding under 243C as a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. You know, I can't say enough bad things about the traffic design, honestly. There's no improvement. Now, before, concerning the building, the big concession to design was that it was going to be a gabled roof, you know, a real roof up there. And now it sounds as if it's really just going to be these fake facades and with a valley in the back to provide space for the equipment, if that's what I was understood. So we've lost something there. You know, it's worse than it is now with that regard. And the question about whether this fake facade will be visible from all around, of course it is. It'll be visible from all around. You know, and that may work where you have a backside to it, like Stop and Shop or the mall. But I don't think it's going to work here. We've lost something. What I heard at the February meeting was that while this is going to be during the demolition and construction phases, that one of the present buildings at the Conway lot will be converted into a temporary pharmacy. And, you know, considering I believe this is supposed to be during the winter, they're going to start November 1 and go through probably to the day before Easter or something. You know, it's going to be an ungodly mess out there. And I just don't see how you can have people on a demolition and construction site, especially when the only parking that's going to be maintained really is the stuff around here. And then the building must be one of them down here. I mean, I just don't see how that's going to work. And so I would request that you have a phasing plan where, you know, that the site where it's going to be is identified, and that there's a certain time when the parking for it has been arranged, and then it can go into use. I mean, you've done this before with the other special permit for a cluster subdivision, or even definitive plans. Oftentimes you've phased them in, but I think they're, you know, I'm not sure that Eladio would even allow that, but if he does, there certainly needs to be some phasing in this, just to protect the people who are going to be trying to use this site. I mean, I would think that it would probably be better in another spot close by, but rather than try to work around all this demolition and reconstruction. The way I look at this is really two separate projects, you know, that only have this connection right here, this kind of no man's land of traffic conflicts that was brought up by the commission in their report. They're separate property owners and separate businesses on each lot. You know, the way this is configured now, you know, the entrance to the CVS is as far away from the entrance to the bank as it probably can be. You know, so people are going to, you know, from CVS, you know, they'll probably drive over to the bank if they were going to use it. You know, is that really the way that a single project, I mean, this is coming before you as a single project. I just don't, I see it as two separate projects that should not be considered together. You should have, if they are as one, you should have a shared parking field, you should have entrances closer together, you should have a uniform architectural theme. Again, the letter from the commission points out many of these same faults and suggests that the buildings be moved on the lots to facilitate that kind of use. Under 24016, you have there's special permit considerations that you have defined. You know, the first one is the adequacy of the size of the site. And, you know, it was said, oh, this is a 3-acre site, everything will be fine. But, you know, in actual fact, this is a 1-acre site for a 3,000-foot building that was estimated to have the total number of vehicle trips per day as 90, you know, if they can. And meanwhile, you have the CVS, which is going to be, what, 5 times bigger? And probably has half that traffic flow per hour. I mean, it's just so different that, you know, when you look at the adequacy of the site, it's 2.5 times the impact at the CVS site than it is on the bank site. And so again, for as far as you're finding on the impact on traffic flow and safety, I don't think you can find that it is an improvement at all. And considering the additional use on the site, I think it's going to be a detriment. And I briefly touched on the visual impact in the fact that we've lost that gable roof. And of course, you have to make a finding on the adequacy of affordable housing. I know that there are other large business buildings on Davis Strait that do have housing in them. So I don't think you can make a positive finding on the adequacy of affordable housing either. In any case, I think that the board really needs to look at this very carefully, take all our comments, take the comments from Sarah Korjeff of the commission and the traffic engineer, who's pointed out all the conflicts, Steve Tupper, and you should seriously consider what Cheryl suggested, that you send this to the Cape Cod Commission. And if that's not the case, I would ask that you turn this down. Thank you very much.
Further comments from the public? Yes.
Nancy Hayward, Chase Road, West Falmouth, Precinct 5, 40-year resident of Falmouth. I remember when Christopher's was in this location. I remember the hearings for the CVS. I used the CVS. I am a member of the Falmouth Historical Commission. I am here speaking only for myself. I'm also associated with the group that Cheryl's connected with. I would like to thank both Cheryl and Alan for their comments. I will start by saying that I think that this should be referred to the Cape Cod Commission. I didn't want to forget that. As a member of the Falmouth Historical Commission, we permitted the demolition delay to proceed with the historic house, which is on the northwest corner of this property. I have been away for the great part of the winter, except for coming back for a couple of historical meetings. I drove into town the other day and I looked at this property and I thought, there sits that historic house. And why didn't the Historical Commission request or demand, which we can't, that that house be cut out of the corner of the property? I don't know who owns this property. I don't know who's profiting or not profiting for this. I don't know who owns the CVS. I don't know whether it's owned by the local person in it, whether it's rented from CVS. CVS is not a little local company. This is a big national corporation. So I'm very distressed at this house. Here we have this affordable housing issue, and we have a house that's going to be torn down. I don't know what it's like inside, but it certainly looks all right from the outside. Mr. Fleer has certainly adequately discussed the traffic issue, which has been there ever since it opened. And Mr. Curry has been spoken to about how does this play into the plans for the realignment and the reuse of this whole intersection. What other issues? Deliveries. I am not familiar with deliveries at the CVS. Now, we've been told that the deliveries are between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. I was a member of the Falmouth
Transportation Commission.
Thank you, Transportation Commission, not the Traffic Advisory Commission. And one of the issues that we had was trying to get deliveries made at appropriate times. Someone else besides me will be checking to see if these deliveries actually come there. Trucks have always been on the current site a problem. I've never quite understood what all those trucks were about. I was hoping that there would be a different design of this building. All the CVS stores in the United States do not look like this typical CVS design. I was not here for the first hearing. I was still out of town. I have not totally reviewed the plans in the plan office. Shame on me. As far as the Design Review Committee is concerned, we are told by Ms. Moynihan that the Design Review Committee is simply advisory. I keep hearing that various commissions are simply advisory. I think that if these people are at all aware of design, that maybe their suggestions, and I have no idea, I haven't read people's minutes. I have not read the minutes of the last hearing that you had on this case. So I don't know what all was, but I think the design review should be paid attention to. Even if it's advisory, they're giving advice. I think my final comment will be, I'm glad Mr. Fleer brought this up. I had looked when I got the agenda for tonight that it says that the last meeting of this is April 9th. Now, that's my birthday, but it also is town meeting. I thought, good heavens. And then the dateline is April 10th, the next day. Maybe that's a town meeting day too. We don't know yet. I don't know how that date got in there, and if that's some legal requirement, somebody who was setting this up a few days ago, I would have thought might have made some other arrangement about the start of this whole thing, which I gather there must have been some options about when it was started, and that doesn't look well planned. Thank you very much for your time.
Further comments from the public? Yes, sir.
Good evening, I'm Ed Chalowick. I live at 54 Alma Road, which is on the corner of Worcester Court and Alma Road, less than a half mile from the site. I've been there since 1996 and very well acquainted with some of the issues, particularly the traffic, which I know many people have spoken to, and I won't belabor the point, but I would like to give some specifics. Starting off, though, I'd like to say I wholeheartedly support the suggestion that this be referred to the Cape Cod Commission, utilize the expertise that they have, and we pay for it, so why not use it? I think historically the town has tried to manage and plan projects of this magnitude themselves, and the results are what we have now at that area, a mess. It would be hard pressed to make anything worse than the existing CVS. So this would be an improvement, but not by a lot. To compare lot coverage and this business versus, well, we're taking down, all of these other buildings, roughly a 12,000 square foot gain in lot coverage from 30,000 order of magnitude to 18,000. That sounds great, except if you look at the existing businesses that most of them really were hardly functioning, the Conway real estate office and some of the other small businesses that are going to be torn down, they were very low utilization, negligible traffic, very infrequent visitors. A CVS is what I would consider a transient, short duration visit business. For many years, I managed industrial, commercial, and residential properties during my working career. I would always avoid and wouldn't lease or rent to businesses of that type because I did not want to impact the neighbors of my other tenants with transient, short duration, high traffic impact businesses. So you have to be careful to compare. Square footage reduction sounds great, but look at what type of business is there. And if it brings a lot of short-term transient traffic, be very careful. Be very diligent in planning for the traffic flow. I just want to give a scenario of what happens in that area. And if I may use the plans that are up here, start with the easy one, coming down Davis Straits, and you have a right turn into the CVS. But as several people have said, a congested area. So now I want to make my right turn in there, but I can't because there's cars in here and there's a queue and it's stuck because cars can't move in there, it's congested. Anybody behind me that wants to go straight towards Hyannis or any place else can't go anywhere either because there's only one lane. There's a left-hand turn only lane if you want to take a turn towards Stop and Shop. But if you want to go straight, you're going to wait till the congestion within this lot clears and I can make my right turn into CVS. Ooh, that's a problem. Better thing might be to, hey, we're going to have to widen the road there, land takings. But that's a real problem. I've seen it happen many times. And that's the easy one. The worst one is coming in this direction from the hospital lights, past the Coonamessett Inn, down Jones Road, and that's the normal way when people are coming and want to head towards East Falmouth, Hyannis, Mashpee. You want to take a turn on 28, take a left. That's another problem because that's a very congested road. In fact, many's the time I would see Jones Road backed up not just to the Coonamessett Inn, but all the way to the hospital lights. It can take a half an hour to get from the hospital lights to Stop and Shop. What impacts that? Certainly Stop and Shop. Boy, when we planned that one, we blew it. Should have made turning lanes and widened that road, made that part of that project. We didn't do it. I don't know who did the planning then, but it wasn't done well. When this CVS was put in, and I think it was around 96, 97 timeframe, the planning wasn't done well. The worst case is then, as I say, Jones Road coming into Worcester Court and 28. You're coming into, out of CVS here. You want to take a left to get to Route 28. Well, gosh, it's backed up at those lights, and it only takes about 6 cars to block it to that intersection. I can't take that left, but I'm gonna pull out and block the lane heading south, because at least I'm halfway there. And now, 5 or 6 cars back up that are trying to come down Worcester Court and head towards the beach. And, oh, we've blocked the intersection. You can't get out of Jones Road. You've got cars trying to come this way. You've got cars trying to come this way. And you can't because somebody decided to make what people call a Rhode Island turn. You come out and they'll block half the road coming this way, and nobody goes anywhere. And so somebody gets polite and says, all right, come on, I'll let you out, you idiot, because you're blocking everybody. So this exit and entrance, which isn't wide enough really for 2 cars, just barely, so typically only a car coming out prevents anybody from coming in, should be wider and should be further down this way. It's a terrible spot for an entrance exit. Certainly anything that narrow. You've got a bank right across the street, major intersection, north-south and east-west. It's poorly designed. It doesn't fit. So I think we need some expertise to help make this work. Because sure, with the size of the site, you can make a terrible situation better. Thank you.
Further comments from the public? Hearing none, seeing none. Yes, Ms. Moynihan.
Thank you. We've heard a lot of additional information from the public comment, so I'll just touch on a few things quickly. Heard a lot of testimony about the traffic problems in this area. I think that the testimony from the residents actually supports this project, quite frankly, because we've shown through expert evidence how this project is going to benefit the traffic situation. And again, you have a traffic engineer who's given you a report that's about 1 inch thick that discusses those clear benefits from this project to alleviate the existing traffic problems. I didn't hear any of the people who spoke give their credentials as traffic experts. I'm not aware of any formal letter from the Cape Cod Commission, but I do believe that technical assistance in terms of review of the traffic report was sought and given. So that's been done. The Cape Cod Commission also reviewed the Stop and Shop. So when we talk about the problems that the residents are speaking of in this area and how the Cape Cod Commission should be reviewing this project, they should keep that in mind, I think. So if you're looking at the potential for a DRI referral, as always when this issue comes up, you look at what is the point in that? What is the service to the town? Here you have a reduction in overall building size of about 12,000 square feet. You're removing the potential for development on the Conway property, such as fast food restaurants, commercial accommodations, office complexes, mixed-use complexes. You're actually taking that away from what's going on here. You have an expert who's given you a traffic report on what the benefits are of the project in terms of the benefit to the Davis Straits intersection, the ability to facilitate cars within the lot itself. You know what the traffic improvements are going to be to the intersection by the state. You have expert testimony on the benefits of closing 3 curb cuts and breaking those curb cuts down. And that's all been reviewed by the Cape Cod Commission already, staff. As far as historic preservation goes, you have your own historical commission granting a waiver fairly readily that the building that is not significant to them to enforce the 6-month demolition delay bylaw. That's been done, that's in your file. There is no requirement in our zoning bylaw or otherwise to provide local police data. What Mr. Dirk has supplied is a generally accepted standard, and his traffic report was done in conformance with the Cape Cod Commission guidelines. There is not going to be a significant increase in traffic from this project. As far as this corner goes and the ability of the town to permit this itself, you have the power to condition the project as you see fit and the right to enforce that. In my view, there's nothing here that the Cape Cod Commission can do that the town of Falmouth can't do. And there's no reason to put this applicant through that exercise of cost and expense for this particular project. There's no justification for it. The people who have spoken may want it because it might delay the project and it might stop the project, but that's not a justification for that kind of severe action. The planning board is very capable of permitting and approving this project and conducting the review, and particularly after about 3 months of that, through your town engineer, your town planners, and your building commissioner. It's been a very thorough review. As far as Mr. Fleer's comments go, in the parking field, we've talked about this before. As people enter the parking area now, or this entrance, the significant difference is they now have the ability to come into this parking area. As you enter the current CVS, as we all know, you come around, there's only this parking area essentially here, the same type of configuration. Now people have the ability to go elsewhere. That alleviates the issue that he's talking about. I'm not sure what he's talking about in terms of what trucks have to drive over. The turning movements on the site have all been supplied. They've been reviewed. They meet acceptable standards. The curb cuts are not a pre-existing condition. This is an existing condition that's basically been remodeled on this plan. It was approved by the planning board in 1997, and Mr. Fleer sat on that planning board at the time. So this project is modeling an existing condition. As far as the temporary pharmacy goes, that would be approved and reviewed through the building department. There would be requirements for construction fencing, and all safety measures would have to be taken. The fire department would be consulted as well, as is typical when you have construction ongoing on a site and you have business uses. The town takes those measures to ensure the public safety, and that's a primary concern. Ms. Hayward's comment about potentially preserving the building on the Conway property, there's no legal authority of the Historical Commission or the Cape Cod Commission for that matter to require that building to be preserved. It's not in a designated historic district. And as I mentioned, the Historical Commission waived the delay bylaw. The last speaker talked about the existing businesses having a low utilization. If that's the case, then that's the current case. It's not the future. And that's how you have to look at this project in terms of what potentially could go on this entire corner. Right now you have 3 separate parcels, you have multiple buildings. This project eliminates multiple buildings and multiple additional uses, and that's the primary benefit, I think, of this project. It takes the entire area and creates one uniform site with 2 separate buildings only that complement each other and work on the corner for a very attractive downtown area. So those are my comments. If you have any questions, if you have.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Is there any reason why you couldn't designate the southwest portion of the parking area to be CVS employees only, or at least sufficient section of that area, that would mitigate the potential for backing up traffic turning in there, because the vehicle parked by employees would not be moving frequently. They would be there most of the time, so that you would have an area that would be sufficient for the employee parking, would be sufficiently remote from the entrance not to interfere with customer use.
Southwest in this area here?
Yeah.
Right.
All right, we'll check on that. Just give us a second.
In the meantime, further comments? Yes, sir.
My name is Adrian Dufresne, Representative of Precinct 2. Having watched the transformation of that corner for over 50 years, I took offense at legal counsel's comment that the people of the area, the people of the key ticket area, are trying to delay the project or discourage the project. We're just aware of what the project is, what it has become over the last 30 or 40 years. I once lived on Worcester Court, and it was a dead end. When Worcester Court was opened up to Falmouth Heights, it became a speedway. A nice little diner was placed there. There was an antique building next door. We are dealing with the second busiest corner in the town of Falmouth. The traffic flow, we've heard traffic statistics from several people. I happen to live right down the street. The traffic flow and the speed of the traffic coming through that intersection, knocking down the buildings and taking away the footprint is not going to resolve the problem of the increased traffic requirements of both CVS and the new bank. You heard from the representatives of the T-Ticket Association requesting to use your authority, your expertise, your study of this particular area over the number of years that you've been on the planning board, and recommend this to a higher agency that may be able to help us just a little bit more to not make another mistake in T-Ticket. The improvements in T-Ticket have not been considerable in my lifetime. I would not like to see another disaster created because we did not exercise every option available to our town officials for a review by experts that go beyond the people in this room. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Further comments? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I, too, do take offense at the fact of being told that we are trying to delay or stop this project. That is the furthest thing that we are trying to do. We are trying to make this the best project it can be. We know this project is going to move forward. We want you to do the right thing. And we truly do take offense that we're being told that we're trying to delay or stop this project. One other point regarding the Cape Cod Commission reviewing the traffic study. In conversation with Steve Tupper, the traffic analyst that did review specific information at the request of our town planner, Mr. Curry, the only information that he looked at was traffic queuing. He did not review and provide to this board, to the best of my knowledge, with information provided to me, anything other than queuing information at the request of the town planner. The other thing that I do take exception to is the comment that because of the reduction of size and the lot coverage, that will result in less traffic. And once again, I reiterate what Mr. Jalowicz said. I think you do have to take a look at the utilization, the quick in and out, and that's just one woman's opinion. Thank you.
Further comments? Mr. Fleer?
Again, for the record, Alan Fleer, and I don't think it's an appropriate comment that because I was on the planning board when the CVS was initially permitted, that therefore you don't have to abide by the fact that this is will be a non-conforming, pre-existing non-conforming use and will require either a variance or a special permit from the ZBA under 243C, finding that the use is not more detrimental, which I find would be very difficult considering both the additional 50% use from the CVS and then the totally additional use by the bank. And I also agree with Cheryl, CVS is my pharmacy. We're not trying to stop the thing at all. We're trying to help you create the best thing possible. About Christmas time this year, you're going to look out there, there's going to be nothing there. There's going to be 3 acres of desolation. And whatever comes up is your project. You're the ones responsible for it. When people say we don't like it, you're the guys on the line. It wasn't like the last time around. The less than 10,000 square feet was by right. Jude had to just get up here and say, all we're doing is site plan review. That's just, a letter to the building commissioner. Please, do the right thing. We're not trying to stop it. But, to see what comes out of this is really, will be the judgment of your tenures. Thank you.
I'm up for it. I don't know about the rest of the board. Further comments? Yes, Ms. Moynihan?
Thank you. The request for the DRI discretionary referral, first of all, I think as you know, the Cape Cod Commission did look at this project. There is no mandatory jurisdiction. They've seen the plans. The full traffic report was submitted because we were asked to provide an electronic copy of it. So it was given to their staff. The request for limited DRI review is on traffic and community character. So the traffic report is in their hands already, and community character is what the building looks like and what the landscaping looks like. So frankly, I don't see that as a necessary thing here or even appropriate in the circumstances. Again, the planning board is well equipped to handle the permitting and the conditioning of this project. My comments with respect to delay or stopping the project, I'm sorry if I offended people, but that is the reality of that kind of action. It's extremely expensive and time consuming, and that's the economic reality of it. And it is a factor for any applicant when they're putting a project forward. So we would ask you, and again, Mr. Fleer has commented again about a need for Board of Appeals review. That isn't necessary here. This bylaw, the bylaw he references was in effect when this project was originally permitted. And again, this condition was approved at that time without any need for the relief he's discussing. So with that, we would ask you to close the hearing tonight, to approve this project ultimately, and to condition it within your power. The applicant can provide a landscape plan for staff review that addresses the additional buffer plants that you are asking for. We would like you to consider that option rather than tearing up the entire planting area, which would be a huge job and a huge expense. And we think that we can address those pocket areas with plantings that your planning staff can review to allow for submission of a revised elevation for the rear of the building showing the dormers has been discussed again for staff approval. And if you feel necessary to, but we'd like to move forward with the project and have the hearing closed and ultimately a positive vote. Thank you.
Okay. Well, seeing that we've heard all of the public comment that people have given us, I'm authorized then to close the hearing.
I move close the hearing.
Just one, Rich.
Before you do, I'd like to know what kind of extension you've been given or asked for.
Let's take care of that little procedural nicety.
Yes, sir.
So the applicant has requested an extension for the site plan review decision. Site plan review decision only would be due on April 9th. That's what we're tracking. Decision for a special permit is 90 days from the close of the hearing. So you have plenty of time for the special permit. And they have requested that the extension of time for the site plan review be extended to May the 8th, 2013.
What day of the week is that, do we know?
Wednesday, I hope.
Wednesday.
Okay.
What is it?
Wednesday, May the 8th.
Wednesday.
Essentially a little over a month.
Okay.
So you would vote that in the form of a motion for the site plan review.
I'll move it.
All right, and we could close the hearing prior to that, could we not?
Right now, you have two applications. One is a special permit.
Right.
And one is a site plan review. You could close your hearing for the special permit.
Right.
If you feel as though you have enough information,
Right.
the issues have been covered. If you're looking for some additional information from the applicant that with regards to the design of the building, you keep the record open for, say, 2 weeks for written comments. Or if you think you need more additional information or want to investigate other public comments further, then you keep your hearing open. But it's the board's call. It's how comfortable you are with the information you have.
Yeah, Pat?
Okay, before we do any closing of anything, though, I understand, okay, we've been extended to May 8th, but I'm wondering if perhaps we ought to run the deadlines synchronous, because one would play into the other. We do the site plan review prior to giving our findings on the special permit. It leaves me uncomfortable.
You would do the motion of your special permit incorporating the plan review. You wouldn't do them separately.
That's the problem, because we've got 90 days from the closing of the special permit to issue the finding on that, the decision on that, but we're putting only an extra month onto the site plan review, and that does leave me uncomfortable. I don't know how the rest
Site
of
plan
the board
review is done in
feels.
30 days, that leaves 60 days to incorporate it into the
Well,
special
let's make sure,
permit.
I just want to make sure I understand your concern. Your concern is that you feel as though you don't have enough time to make a decision between now and May 8th on your special permit? Or
Potentially, because the one kind of goes into the other.
Yeah, you would use the plan review to help you make a decision on your special permit. So my sense is that you would have the meeting of you would have, May 7th? You have 4 meetings. So if you're not comfortable with that, you have to vote this tonight. You should vote this tonight, at least get yourself till May.
I understand.
And I'll speak with the applicant's counsel to see if not, that you can have if it turns out that they need a little additional time, I think they will, of course, be fairly reasonable.
Mrs. Careful, the applicant can't do much with one without the other, so they...
That's my point.
Right, so I think, there would be, work there in terms of whatever needs to be done to accommodate those tie lines. I mean, obviously, timing is always a factor, and there's a potential construction schedule here that's in jeopardy. So it is important, and that's why I'm asking for the hearing to be closed, so we can move forward and hopefully work towards a vote even, around the end of this month, so that they can meet the construction schedule.
Laura, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
The problem I have is and you've just answered it.
Okay.
You'd be willing to give on if we're not ready to finish.
Like I said, they can't do one without the other,
Right.
so there would be cooperation.
So,
Close the hearing.
excuse me, Rich, one second. We have a request from the applicant in writing to, extend the deadline for the site plan review until May 8th.
Correct.
Okay.
So
Rich?
at the-
Close the
just-
hearing tonight on the special permit only, and that gives us 90 days.
I know.
Okay. Now, we grant them 38 days, or 35 days, whatever, to provide us, to make a decision. With no further extensions on that, that leaves us approximately 55 days in which to issue a decision on the whole thing, incorporating our decision on the site plan review. So that's 55 days. It's not 90 days, but it isn't next week either.
Rich, my concerns were answered by Laura.
Okay.
So I know where you're coming from, but I had concerns different.
Right.
Thank you.
Brian?
Yes,
I'm sorry, I think we interrupted you.
I lost my train of thought.
Okay, all right,
I'll get it back in a moment.
all right.
Where was I?
Well, then
Oh,
we-
yes, I need, let's take care of this little procedural bad boy and vote something for your plan review. And my sense is to take care of that procedural issue. So my recommendation is to, at the request of the applicant, extend the timeframe for a decision on site plan review to May 8th, 2013.
I have moved that.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion to extend the deadline for the site plan review until May 8th. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So that motion is taken care of.
That takes care of that.
Okay, now,
I renew my motion to close the hearing on the special permit.
Second.
I have a question before.
we can discuss it on the site plan review?
On
The special
the
permit.
closing, before we do the closing, I'd like to know, does that then, a lot of people in public have asked us to consider this Cape Cod Commission referral. Would that mean if we close it now that is out of the question? We're choosing not to do that?
No, within that 90 days, we could ask them, we could ask them for their assistance.
That's all.
Okay. All right, so Rich, you moved
And I
that we
second.
close the hearing, and
I
Pat
second.
second. Any further discussion on that?
I have just some questions.
Oh.
There's a lot of issues that have been brought up. Are they going to be addressed in this time frame with just this board? That's what we're saying, instead of with the public.
Right.
That's what we're saying, that we're going to continue to take changes and whatnot from the applicant, but no more public comment at this time.
Yeah.
No, you're closing your hearing.
Our hearing.
That means you're taking the information you have in front of you, from the applicant, from the public, all sources, and you're going to go into a huddle, and you're going to discuss it.
But we're not going to get any more information or any changes to the plan.
That's it. That you got to discuss. Now, if you want a clarification or some of information that's on the record, that's okay. But once you have your plans in front of you, and the hearing is closed.
I understand, thank you.
That's it. That's it.
And you could condition the permit as you see fit for plan changes, or alternatively, as I have offered, we could supply those additional items for you within the next 2 weeks. And that could be part of the motion, narrowing it down.
So Jim, is your issue whether or not those changes will be made to that one side of the building? Is that what you're worried about?
That's primarily it. I brought it up the first time we heard it, and I just would like to see it addressed.
No,
That's all.
but I know, but I mean, if we
Mr.
close
Chair,
the
I will
hearing.
withdraw my motion.
Excuse me, Rich.
That will make a difference.
I just didn't want to be closed out of that. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, I will withdraw my motion, and Pat will make a different motion.
Okay, in just a minute, I'll recognize you that in just a moment. Yes, Jim. Are you convinced that you will be able to see the changes that you've asked for and that they have said that they would make without being part of the condition of our decision, or whether?
I think I am. I think if I listen to council, I think they're going to address the issues that I brought up and they'll be brought before us and we can discuss it. And if you all agree with it, I'll be comfortable.
Okay, I'm going to change the motion.
I've withdrawn my motion.
Wait, Rich, I said I would recognize Rich first, so Rich.
I said, well, I've withdrawn my motion, Pat's withdrawn her second, to defer to Pat making a different motion.
Okay, thank you.
I move that we close the hearing tonight, but leave it open for any sort of written or design requests that we have made of the applicants to be added to. What we consider.
For
Site plan.
what time? For how many weeks, or how many weeks are you gonna?
No, we close the hearing.
I know, but then you leave it open.
Oh, for 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Okay,
Mhm.
right, okay.
Does that get us?
So we have a motion to close the hearing, but leave it
Hopefully.
open for written comment for 2 weeks. Now, do I have a second?
Yes, I second.
Yes, sir. Okay, further discussion then.
Could I just clarify?
Yeah,
I thought the motion was leave it open for written or design from the applicant.
that's right.
Okay, not, okay.
Correct.
Did I say
As
something
As we
different?
have requested.
From the applicant is important, okay.
From the applicant,
Correct.
right, not from the public.
Correct.
Right. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries, and the hearing is closed. Thank you all for coming.
Go get Paul if he's still out there.
If you leave the room, would you kindly hold your comments until you're farther enough down the hallway so that we can continue?
I know, but what else can we do?
No chance.
What?
There's no chance of that.
I'm gonna declare a 5-minute recess. 5-minute recess, gentlemen.
Agreed, they could make it wider.
Okay, I call the meeting back to order. The next item on the agenda is the April 2013 annual town meeting roles and responsibilities of the chairman and the vice chairman. So we can discuss that with the planner and,
And the clerk a little bit.
yes.
I just want to.
Oh, yeah, right. You have to read. I'm sorry.
You have
Excuse me.
you have the magic words.
I have the magic words, yeah?
Yes.
Nothing can happen until you read them. I just wanted to make sure everyone understands, as a board, the town meeting that's coming up here in a week or so, that the board chairman typically gives the motion and then fields questions, does presentations sometimes. But in this instance, Ralph will give the motion on the articles, but it'll be Pat who's going to have perhaps a short presentation on the turbine article to tell the differences, essentially just the differences this bylaw has from the bylaw that the town meeting saw in November. And then, if there are to be questions asked, and I know everyone wants to help, let Pat or Ralph answer. And if they can't answer, then let me answer. That way, anything we've choreographed in terms of levels of detail or specificity or questions to be answered, just put the mind zap on us a little bit. You're always free as citizens and taxpayers and town representatives, town meeting representatives, to debate the merits of the article, on for it or against it, but typically planning board members don't speak against articles. But let us field the questions from town meeting. It just helps, I think, also for the town meeting members to understand too. And if planning board members in their goodwill and best intentions give information or answer a question that's wrong, then it has to be corrected.
My intention for these articles was to make strong statements in terms of the underlying policies and not to address the issues. In fact, I think when I do that, I'm going to expressly preface my remarks with saying I am not commenting on the technical aspects of this bylaw, only on the need for such a bylaw to address our future energy needs.
I was actually not getting at that. You're free, as I say, to speak as a citizen representative, town meeting member,
I'll
whatever.
be speaking as a town meeting member.
I'm just saying when it comes down to the nuts and bolts, why'd you go with 6, or why'd you go with 2, or why'd you go?
Yeah.
Let Pat answer.
Absolutely.
Let Ralph make the motions, let Pat give some presentations. If Pat draws a blank, I'll go.
My point is,
You're on your own.
My point as a town meeting member is only going to be is that we've got to get on the bandwagon with regard to developing wind energy.
I'm talking about all the articles.
This is the way to do it.
I'm talking about all the articles. So I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page about that before we go to town meeting. I just wanted a brief moment before the board.
I'm on that page.
Good.
Excellent.
Anybody else with comments? Yes, Jim?
Yeah, I just a suggestion, I would like to see us have a practice going forward as a board that we never contradict the board, our vote, because I think it just weakens our whole effect. And if one member decides to get up and speak as a town meeting member and disagree with what our point, it just, no matter what it is, it just takes the wind out of so much work we've done. And I think as a group, we need to decide whether we really want to do that. I'm not saying it's a requirement, but I think we're either a team, we're either all in or all out. And when somebody takes an alternate position publicly, I just think it just hurts our agenda of trying to get our work done. And that's all I wanted to say.
Jim?
I will say that there are other boards that, when they have a split vote on an issue, they then re-vote, and the minority agrees with the majority, and then they don't run into that situation. I have seen that happen, not very often, but occasionally. So that would be one possible way around what you're saying. Yeah, Rich?
Yeah, I am a planning board member, and I am sworn to, carry out those duties. I'm also a town meeting member, and I'm also sworn to carry out those duties in good conscience. If I think something this board has done is bad policy in terms of its recommendation, I'm going to address that issue. If I think, now, I'm certainly not going to address little minor problems that I may have had when we were talking about the specifics of, no, that's not what I'm going to talk about. What I'm going to talk about here, in favor of our article on wind turbines, is the need to get something in place that is workable, that is going to be, advance the development of wind energy here, locally, and nationally, and that's why I am urging passage of this article, without getting into my little quibbles that I might have had before. Now, this other article that we're going to come up in the special, I'm just going to talk against that. I'm just going to say no. Let's defeat this, and let's put our main article for reconsideration when we go back to the annual. That's what I'm going to suggest, because it needs 2/3 either way. And if we don't get 2/3 the first time on our main article, I don't think we're going to get 2/3 on the other one. So, now,
I'm just getting into the presentations, motions, and explanations. How do you speak about things as a town meeting member? You're free to speak.
but I'm going to be making that presentation not as a planning board member, as a town meeting member, for the same reason that I think we need to get going with the development of wind energy, and we need to do it in a rational way, which I think our work over the past year and a half really has been.
Okay. All right.
That's all I have to say.
Good. Okay, so basically, Jim, you will be reading the standard, everybody was heard, and
Meetings were held
for
such and
the,
such a
for the
date,
hearing.
and all that
Right.
wanted to be heard was heard.
Right, okay. And then I will be making the motions, the recommendation for the motions, and then I will introduce Pat and refer to, and say that she will be making the presentation for the wind turbine article and the local comprehensive plan articles. Okay. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is a referral, a grant of an easement on Mill Road and Surf Drive. You have in your packet something about, with the title at the top says project description. It's about the town granting, I guess it's an extension of an easement to bring in Star and Comcast infrastructure over to Martha's Vineyard. And Mr. Curry is going to mention, or talk to us about that.
Right, under, this paragraph is the section that the selectmen are referring this to you. They have to hold a public hearing before the use of town-owned land goes forward. And on the back, there's a locus map of what we're talking about and a short description. There's essentially a hybrid cable of TV cable together with power. And the proposal is to have certain pieces of equipment, transformer, manholes near the parking lot on Mill Road and Surf Drive, and then grant an easement for that, and then grant an easement for the cable to go underneath the beach, where they'll pull it out somewhere half a mile out in Vineyard Sound and bring it out over to the vineyard. It's a requirement under this chapter 207 that they send this referral to the planning board. Their hearing, I believe, is in about 3 weeks, at the end of this month. If you have an opinion as a planning board on the topic, great. If you don't have an opinion on the topic, that's okay too. It could be a referral of no comment. We'll have some time to take a look at this at your meeting on the 23rd if you want to go out and look at the site or talk about it or do anything with regards to what you might want to make a referral about. I just want to let you know that this is in front of you. As a board, do you have any land use concerns, property interest concerns about the town, something that would be within the purview of the planning board that you think the Board of Selectmen should know about? You don't need to make a decision tonight. You've had a long night. If there's something you want to opine on for the selectmen, but perhaps a short discussion tonight about that, then we can put it on for another agenda.
Yeah, Rich?
Yeah, I have strong opinion on this. It is reinforced by people in precinct 1 who I've talked with. I've not spoken with anyone in precinct 1 thinks this is a good idea. I believe this is of no benefit to the citizens of Falmouth. It is giving a utility, a private corporation, the right to use an easement over our beaches, over our parking lot area, and it gives no benefit, returns no benefit to the citizens of Falmouth. I see no reason why this should be done. Like I say, I'm hearing from people in precinct 1, a couple of people who are strongly against this. I've heard nobody speak in favor of it as doing anything, particularly for the residents of Mill Road.
Okay, I would like to place it on the agenda, a future agenda, maybe in a week or two. I have heard that there is a possible benefit to the town, and that would be financial.
Well,
And so, no, excuse me, I'm speaking, Rich.
So I'm saying
Could I
that's
please
possible.
finish? Could I finish?
Yeah.
Can I finish? Thank you. So there is the potential of benefit to the town, and I think that everybody on the planning board ought to just think about this a little bit, and maybe if you have some issues that you want the staff to consider, then go ahead and ask the staff to do that, and then they can bring that forward when we discuss it on a future agenda. Now, I want to know whether is the board feel as though this is appropriate for a future agenda or not?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And your point about the financial, I was going to say, that's a factor which we should consider, but that's going to be how much?
Well, Rich, you made a statement that there was no benefit to the town,
No,
and
and
that
I'm
was
agreeing
not
that-
true. Okay, so just, excuse me. Does anybody else have a comment?
I'm agreeing
Jim.
with you. Financial could be, but the question is how much?
Rich, I haven't recognized you. Jim?
I have a land use consideration, and I have to qualify it, and it's only from my own personal observations. I am intimately familiar with the beach areas in this area, and I, for many years, would swim every morning at the end of Shore Street, and the power lines that go under the Shore Street, you go 10 feet offshore, and you can stand on them. They're right there, okay? They're boxed cables. I stand on them. I think they're dangerous. I can't believe that they're that close offshore. A boat with an anchor could drag on them. The nearest marker is 300 yards offshore, showing the lines that are there. I think it's a very dangerous situation. Now, if this turns, now I know they probably didn't intend those things to be exposed 10 feet offshore. And they probably said they're going to be a half mile out and all these other things. But guess what? They are there. And you can see them with your own eye. I've stood on them. I see them every day. In fact, when I swam back and forth, I would use them like a swimming pool to mark my turnaround spot. That's how clearly visible they are. And I invite any of you to go see them. And I've switched my swimming spot to the end of Mill Road. And if you put the same damn things there to do it again, it's just ridiculous. You just can't do it. Now, if you're going to say it's a half mile offshore or way beyond where it's ever come out, I don't have an issue. But I got to make that point on land use and recreation. I'm really worried about it.
Okay. I'd like to discuss this at a future point, and rather than
Well,
tonight.
I thought it was open for discussion tonight, no.
No, I asked whether or not you wanted to put it on
Yes,
an
I'm sorry.
agenda, a
Yes, of course
future
I do.
agenda. I didn't
Of course I
ask,
do. I'll shut up.
I didn't ask for an opinion about whether you're pro or con. Yeah, Pat?
Okay, assuming that we are going to have this on a future agenda, there's a question that is not made clear here that I think will be germane, especially with your comments, to our discussion that I would ask Brian to find out about. It mentions horizontal directional drilling operations. It mentions putting this into a conduit. So my question is, and I believe I read, that they are going to bury this below the sea level, but it's not really made clear in the description here. How deeply are they planning to bury it? Are they indeed planning to bury it? And are they going to put any kind of boxes in that Jim is describing?
Okay, so let's get your questions and comments to the staff, and then they can do the research for us, and then we'll have the answers when we have it on our agenda. Doug?
I was just going to say, also, we could discuss the existing ones possibly and incorporate that into our conversation.
The existing ones, okay. Yeah, right. Any comments from down here? No? Okay. All right, so it looks like we've addressed that issue, that we will have it on a future agenda, and we will discuss the merits of as a recommendation to the selectmen as to whether or not we think this is a good thing to pursue. Yes, Doug?
And this is not some kind of a thing they need for town meeting, is it?
No, town meeting will be over.
Right, so this is not something they're expecting anything.
Okay. All right, let's move on. The agenda then. Committee reports. I have been asked to make comments and bring you up to date a little bit on the Spring Bars Road project. I did a little bit of review for myself and research this afternoon. Just as a reminder, there are 2 parcels there. The town purchased that piece of land. 9.5 acres has been set aside for open space. The Community Preservation Committee has contracted for $20,000 a study by Horsley Whitman how to develop that open space. And we have a draft copy of that now that we will be reviewing this week, actually. And then once we accept that, then that open space will be developed over time. Their initial price that they put on their draft form would be about $1.5 million to be probably done phased in over time. It would involve the site restoration. As you know, it was a manufacturing area before. It's pretty rough shape right now. They're studying access into the property and circulation within it. Any structures and amenities, like for instance a boardwalk over the Cedar Swamp, that kind of thing. Signage, scenic resources, places where you could stop and rest or look and see something that would be scenic. Access to Little Pond for water recreation. So this is the kind of things that the RFP required them to do. Okay. The second portion of the property is for housing, and it's being currently studied. The Community Preservation Committee studied it thoroughly and consulted with town engineer and the Conservation Commission and so forth. This area covers 11.5 acres. The Cape Cod Commission is currently looking at the feasibility of the 30-unit housing project, which the Community Preservation Committee had recommended. But the Cape Cod Commission is also taking a look at the surrounding area also, which was brought up tonight by one of the public when they were had our hearing on the CVS. You will note that Article 27 of the town meeting, this current town meeting that's coming up, the Board of Selectmen are recommending to convey or transfer the 11 plus acres for community housing. The Community Preservation Committee entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Board of Selectmen back in March of 2010, and to outline the purpose and scope, and to clearly lay out how the Community Preservation Committee and the Board of Selectmen would address this situation. So the purpose of the MO is to clearly state the process that the CPC and the Board of Selectmen intend to utilize in order to determine the uses allowed. That's under the purpose and scope. And it also says that on the area of the property consisting of 11.5 acres, known as Parcel A, it shall be reserved for the purposes of community housing and recreation. And all community housing units developed on the property shall be deed restricted as affordable. So, that's where we are right now. And that's an update of what we're going on, what's going on. Hopefully, that article will pass at town meeting. And then the CPC and the Board of Selectmen can continue to pursue the affordable housing aspects of the one parcel, and the CPC, working with the 300 Committee and the Conservation Commission, will pursue the development of the open space area. So, I don't know if I mentioned, covered what you were looking for, but that's briefly.
I just have a question. What's the elevation above sea level of where they plan to put the housing? Because, as I understood it, the original developer wanted to add 15 feet of fill, and that was the basis for the lawsuit.
Yeah, I think, though, that he wanted to develop areas, he wanted to put in, I think, 125 units, something like that.
168.
So, how much, I'm sorry?
168.
168, thank you. And to
large
do
buildings.
that, he was going to have a higher elevation in a good portion of that area to put his housing sufficiently above sea level. With a proposal of 30 units, it's not going to require anywhere near that amount of fill. I don't know exactly how, and that will be up to the developer.
I think that the one they're doing now, if I could interrupt, is all on the already exposed area, the previously developed where the block plant was. And the reason the other guy had to do so much filling was because he wanted one parking area in the middle, so he wanted all three buildings at a similar height.
Yeah.
So it's pretty different.
Oh, it's rather, and of course, it's up to the developer to make those determinations, on where the housing is best suited for on the parcel.
And when are we going to get the new FEMA maps? Is that something that's...
Brian, FEMA maps?
The federal government tells us we'll have them for the November town meeting. Next November town meeting. I'm sorry, this November.
This is coming to November, okay.
And you don't know what the water table is in that area, do you?
I don't, no, I don't.
Okay.
The plan is to bring in town water for the housing and also have it sewered.
Well, water table affects foundations. And
Yes, I know, all right.
soil and all that.
Yep. Yes, Jim?
I'm just wondering if I heard you right. So, I've been watching this project for a long time. I've been disconnected from it a little while. But it sounds like the public access has been moved away from the southern portion of it down by the river, and it's being moved to the northern portion on another whole site. Is the public access for getting to Little Pond now off of Spring Bars Road, closer to the street and not way down on the southern end near Alma Ave? There was,
Closer to the street, what do you mean?
oh, north and south, let's keep it. Is it now on the northern end of the parcel as opposed to the southern end of the parcel?
Oh, I'd have to look at the map, but I think, yes, it's been moved a little bit, yes, but I would need a map to point that out to you, I really would. I wouldn't want to describe it verbally, because I can't recall where it is now versus where Horsley Witten is proposing. But that proposal by Horsley Witten is available up in the Community Preservation Office. And I've got I think it's 36 pages that I have to review before Thursday morning. So good luck to me. And there is a map in there and so forth. So, yeah, I guess stay tuned is probably the best final comment that I can give you. Let's see, well, other committee reports, I guess we're getting, on our agendas, we're trying to be specific on our committee reports, right? So if somebody has a committee report at the next meeting, then make sure the office knows that so that it gets on the agenda. So we comply with the open meeting law and are as specific as we can be with our agendas. Let's see, I don't believe there's any correspondence. And does anyone have comments about future items for the agenda? Yes, Paul?
Not for the agenda, I'm just curious if we had much feedback from the precinct meetings last week, that will continue this week. When I attended on precinct 7, there were no questions at all about the planning board articles. But I understand some of the others did have extensive conversations.
I sent an email to the office and everyone, to be forwarded, I guess, about what happened in my precinct, 8 and 9. So you got my comments. Rich, did you have comments at your precinct meeting, or haven't you had it yet?
I don't think I've had it yet. What is
Okay.
precinct 1 and 2?
Precinct 1?
1 and 2.
1 and 2. When is it, Jim?
Thursday.
This coming
Yeah,
Thursday?
week.
Okay. Right. And Doug, you had,
We had a couple of comments at precinct 3 meeting, but the precinct 3 meeting was so overrun with all the other issues that we didn't really get a proper amount of time and attention. I did speak briefly at the start of the meeting and explained that we made as many changes as we thought were possible, and addressed as much of the public comment as we could. And Ron Zweig was the only commenter who said, could I assure that our PowerPoint would address the reasons for the 6 decibel limit, and I briefly explained to him that we had chosen that because we find there's wild swings and variations in the modeling, so that's what we were targeting. And he also wanted to know why the limit on the size. Same old question.
300 kW down to 250.
He wants to know why we arrived at that.
Right, yeah, he asked that at mine also.
Right.
And I just, excuse me, just one second. The answer to that was, we just had a size issue, right? I mean,
We did a comparative analysis of the different turbines in town
right.
that were truly accessory. And I think you used the Scanlon model, the Scanlon turbine up in the tech park as a limit. It was a 250K. Actually, it was 225, but that was the first number you used. But then you came back with 250 because that was the size of the wind energy system at the Scanlon project in the tech park. And the board saw that as a model accessory type use. Well, we're running a little far afield of your agenda. There's nothing on your agenda about discussion at precinct meetings, so you have to be a little careful.
Well,
Another point you can make, and as Pat had said earlier, that we were trying to be conservative, erring on the side of caution. And the reason for that is very simple, that if technology improves, we can always increase these limits.
yeah, of course.
But once we put something in there, it's there.
Yeah, I know.
So
That's a good point.
All right, well, anyway, I lost the second page of my agenda. I think that that's it, isn't it?
That's it.
Yeah.
So I move adjournment.
Okay, I have a motion to adjourn.
No, you seconded. I already
Oh,
moved.
second.
Wait a minute.
Discussion.
What is it, Paul?
There was some confusion at the time of the meetings before the special and the regular town meeting next week. Can we confirm that?
6:30.
6:30, not
yeah.
6 o'clock.
Right.
On both
I saw
nights.
you had an email today about that. Okay, so those are meetings that we post, we always post just in case there's some last minute issues that we have to discuss.
Tuesday night meeting, there will be, you need to be there.
Yeah.
Because you need to make a recommendation on Article 2 at a special town meeting.
Yeah, okay.
So Tuesday night is you need a quorum, otherwise there will be no recommendation.
Right, well, we were asked to give our availability for that today in an email, so just go respond to that. Okay, all those in favor?
I almost said
Adjournment?
Hey,
Meeting's adjourned.
Mr. Shea.